Events around America honoring Martin Luther King Jr. today. Secretary of Homeland Security Jay Johnson laying a wreath at the Martin Luther King Jr. Memorial. Here in New York City, Reverend Al Sharpton spoke out at an event about the role he sees of today's civil rights leaders.
Part of the role of activists is to get your attention. You don't see me on Dancing with the Stars. You see us dealing with social issues and to draw the attention to those issues. And if you don't do that, people are not going to deal with those issues.
Joining me now, Dinesh D'Souza, creator of the documentary film America and author of the book The End of Racism. Dinesh, good to see you. And so that's an explanation, I suppose, of types from Al Sharpton about why he behaves the way he behaves. You see a stark contrast between his tactics and those of Dr. King.
Megan, the greatness of Martin Luther King isn't just his personal qualities, but it's that there was a tradition that went for 100 years, all the way back to Frederick Douglass, through Booker T. Washington, to Martin Luther King. And this was a century of black protest aimed at establishing the idea that we are in this country a minority of one, that our rights don't come to us as members of groups, but they belong to us because we are individuals. And in one of his most moving lines, King said that every man must write with his own hand the charter of his Emancipation Proclamation. So this idea that we should take responsibility for our lives and we have the right to be treated equally under the law, this is the Martin Luther King legacy. But how different a legacy it is from the current generation of race activists, Jesse Jackson, Al Sharpton, but I would add Eric Holder and Barack Obama, who are cut from a completely different cloth and have a completely different attitude toward the colorblind ideal, which they reject.
How so? I mean, how do you put Al Sharpton in the same field as Barack Obama?
Well, they're not the same. I mean, Obama is actually a very odd example because although he's the first African-American president, he hasn't actually had the African-American experience. In fact, he's not descended from slaves on either side of his family. His father was simply a foreign student who came here.
He has black skin and he grew up in America as a black man.
Well, he grew up in Hawaii, and then he spent a considerable amount of time in Indonesia. He's made multiple trips to Kenya. He's talked about how he shares the dreams of his father.
That does not deprive him of his experience as a black man. Okay, let's move on to your next point, because you're also actually taking heat for some of the similar comments you made on Twitter today, including the following. Soul brothers, you tweeted. Obama gets along so well with guys like Holder and Sharpton because they are all shakedown artists of one sort or another. A little strong, no?
Well, I think what's happening is it's not actually strong. I think what we see today is that the leaders of today, far from trying to establish a colorblind idea, use race in order to get political advantage or financial advantage. They use race to threaten corporations to get money from them. They use race as a weapon of intimidation. They stoke the fires of sometimes racial division and even racial hatred. We saw a hint of this in Ferguson. So race has become an instrument of exploitation, not of justice.
I got to go, but I got to ask you, how's that other thing coming along? You out yet?
Megan, this month I complete 4 months, so I'm reaching the halfway point of my confinement, and I get out the end of May. I'm doing great.
All right, Dinesh, good to see you. And if you don't know what we're talking about, you can just go to the Kelly File Facebook page, and you will see my prior interviews with Dinesh on his
A friend who's in liquor production has a still of astounding construction. The alcohol boils through magnetic coils. He says that it's proof by induction. Human beings are, for better or worse, stuck in a subjective experience of the world that can vary in important ways from person to person. We all generally agree that there's something out there that we can all touch and experience in our own unique ways. But how much of that experience is us, and how much of it is actually out there? That's harder. Accessing truth is something that we all do, or think that we do, all the time, using all sorts of different methods that we can choose to trust more or less than the others. There's philosophical rationalism, where the truth is revealed if you reason hard enough. There's religious faith, where the truth is revealed through revelation, dogma, or holy texts. There's intuition, or trusting your gut. If you're watching Thunk, you probably trust the claims of science and scientists a great deal, even knowing that the romanticized ideal of science conflicts with the mundane reality of spending years staring at columns of data in Excel while worrying about funding. But in some debates where somebody is disagreeing with scientific consensus, whether they're anti-vaxxers or creationists or climate change deniers, I've heard some proponents of science assert that it's 100% objective, that unlike other methods of accessing truth, it's a perfect abstraction of logic and evidence that's totally free of any bias or subjectivity. Well, not really. Most implementations of the modern scientific method make a number of important assumptions that are, on some level, arbitrary. Whether or not they're as arbitrary as assuming that your gut is never wrong is up for debate. But they are still assumptions, and they are still arbitrary, and knowing what they are is an important part of understanding science and its operation. For example, in order to do science, one has to make an implicit assumption of naturalism. That is to say that all phenomena are caused by natural causes, not supernatural ones. This is why papers entitled Thermal Fluctuation in Transport and Type II Superconductors, or Maybe Fairies Are Playing with Our Gauges, don't get published. That assumption isn't logically bulletproof, but it is necessitated by science's requirement of experimental repeatability. If the data that you're collecting today is subject to the whims of some supernatural entity, which you can't measure or control for, who's to say they won't be totally different tomorrow? That's not to say that someone can't be a good scientist and still believe in the supernatural outside of the lab. It's just that when they're doing science, they generally must make the assumption of purely natural causes. There's also a general assumption of the universal homogeneity of physical laws, that the rules which govern the things in your experiment are just as applicable outside the lab, that they're relatively unchanged by time or space. I mean, science would be pretty unremarkable if all it did was tell you things that happened in labs. And that's not just because a full day of pipetting is really boring. There's another assumption that science makes which isn't really intuitively obvious just because we take it for granted so often in our lives. Induction. Induction is the process of recognizing patterns and then generalizing those patterns into rules, and it's generally considered to be a foundational component of scientific research. It's also a problem. So much so that there is a capitalized problem.
Breaking the balls in, put balls out. I don't want anyone touching the balls after that. I don't want anyone rubbing them. Those balls are perfect. I saw the balls, and baseball is breaking the balls in and getting comfortable with them. I choose the balls that I want the ball at that point. I approve the ball that I expect balls. So football like that ball feels. However many balls are necessary is an issue with the balls. I said the balls are not ready for play. The ball was ready for play. Football issue is footballs after I choose them. One ball may feel good the next day, it may not, whether how old the ball was or with the ball. So I get the ball, I throw the ball, grip it, and I try to throw the ball. That's the extent of the me touching. I don't sit there and, try to squeeze it and determine that. I guess it's a challenging thing. I'm not squeezing the balls. I'm not, I don't. I feel the tack on the ball. I think 13-pound ball or 11-pound ball the other night. So arrow balls, breaking the balls in, have the balls in play. Everybody has a preference. Some guys like them round, and some guys like them thin. Some guys like them tacky. Some guys like them brand new. Some guys like old balls. I mean, they're all different. So you got to feel them, and between the time that I touched it, really till Monday morning, I had no idea what happened with the balls. So balls, and if we like a ball, then how I like the balls, and I tell them how great they are.
More about these dueling news conferences with Bill Belichick and Tom Brady, with a man who played for Bill Belichick and with Tom Brady. I'm joined now by Jermaine Wiggins. Jermaine, let me ask you flat out, because, look, I'm a Patriots fan. That's a disclaimer. I also think that cheating is bad, so I'll give you two disclaimers right there. Mm-hmm. There are a lot of people, I have a lot of friends who are not Patriots fans who say the Patriots cheat. Look at Spygate. Look at the culture inside the Patriots organization. I'll just ask you flat out, do the Patriots cheat?
I would say no. When you go back and you look at it, look at what Spygate was. Spygate was, they were doing some things, they were filming opposing sidelines, and they were trying to get hand signals. They were trying to get a competitive edge. Did it work? Probably a little bit. On a scale of 1 to 10, it probably worked for about 1. So and when they came out with this, there were a lot of other teams that did that. They also videotape silence, trying to get that edge. The thing about the Patriots, sometimes they push it to the limit. And when you look at these things, I think a lot of people start to say stuff. When you're king of the mountain and you've been to 5 Super Bowl appearances and you're headed to your 6th, you got a massive bullseye on your back, and that's what the New England Patriots have on them.
Pushing it to the limit is one thing. Pushing it beyond the limit is another. You said that Spygate only helped them 1 on a scale of 1 to 10. I've heard people say with the deflated footballs, I've heard people say, look, in the first half when they're using the deflated footballs, they were only up 17-7. In the second half, when they used regulation footballs, it was 28-0. It didn't matter. But is that a fair argument that, you know, it doesn't matter if cheating didn't help you that much? I mean, cheating's okay as long as it doesn't actually help.
Well, I don't think cheating's okay, but I think you have to look at you got to look at it in the full context. You got to understand that when you're talking about the National Football League, and there are people that do it. There are other teams that were out there and they were filming the Spygate, they were filming opposing sidelines. There are plenty of quarterbacks, plenty of teams who deflate the footballs, who scuff up the footballs, who do a lot of things, who try to push the envelope, who try to push the limit, and sometimes go past it. But I think when you're the New England Patriots and you're a Patriots fan and people around here, and they always say, well, why is it they're always coming down on the Patriots? Because you have your instances like Spygate. And the Patriots, they did get in trouble for that. They lost the first-round draft pick, and Bill Belichick was fined over $500,000. But that's something that never leaves them. So if anytime there's a situation, we heard it last week with the Baltimore Ravens when they came out in the formation. What's going on here? What are the Patriots doing? To me, I think when you look at these things, there are a lot of teams that do things in the National Football League, but people don't know about it. As soon as the Patriots do it, everybody wants to know about it. Everybody says they're cheating, but it doesn't, especially in this case, the Deflategate, it has nothing to do with the football game. It does not affect it. The issue is from 2 hours and 15 minutes before the game, they weigh the footballs, and then at that point in time, there's a window that they can't do anything to the footballs. They can't manipulate them in any way, and that's where everybody's trying to figure out where did they lose air, how did they lose air, was it something that the Patriots did?
Look, maybe they lost the air on their own, Jermaine. Maybe they did. And if they did, I'd be thrilled because it would mean the Patriots didn't break the rules. But if someone in there and took air out of the footballs, it means someone did break the rules. And even if every team's pushing the envelope, it means the Patriots cheated. I just don't see any way around that if that is what happened. Now, let me play you another soundbite because it gets to the culture of Bill Belichick and the Patriots. Bill Belichick said he has no explanation for how the balls weren't inflated as much as they were supposed to be. And not only that, he basically said he doesn't even know anything about air pressure in footballs to begin with. Let's listen.
In my entire coaching career, I have never talked to any player, staff member about football air pressure. That is not a subject that I have ever brought up. To me, the footballs are approved by the league and game officials pregame, and we play with what's out there. And that's the only way that I have ever thought about that.
Never discussed it. Never, ever discussed it. Do you buy that, Jermaine?
Yeah, he never talked to me about air pressure in footballs. He never brought it up in a meeting, in the meetings I've been in, so I've never been around him, and I've never heard him talk about air pressure. I've played with Tom Brady. He's another one I never heard him talk about air pressure. I know this. I know there are a lot of quarterbacks in the National Football League, as well as kickers. They like their balls a certain way, and they get the balls as soon as they come out of the box. They're real slick, so they try to scuff them up. They do a lot of different things to them. Every quarterback has something they do. I mean, there's plenty of stories out there that we've seen with Brad Johnson, who was a former teammate of mine, who came out and said that, you know what, he bribed somebody to get him the football so he can get him to feel a little bit better in his hands. So when I look at Bill Belichick and he says this, I've seen him many a times, had many conversations with him as a player, and we've never talked about air pressure in the footballs.
You know what? I never have either before this week, so I suppose it's possible. Then again, I'm not a football coach. Jermaine Wiggins, thank you so much for being with us.
John, can I say one thing before we go? It's simple around here. We got a saying around here in New England. We actually did a little song on our radio show this morning, a parody about Deflategate. You can check it out on hut969boston.com. There's a saying for New England Patriots fans. They hate us because they ain't us.
They hate us because they ain't us. And now I'm hated by non-Patriots fans and Patriots fans alike for suggesting that the Patriots might have cheated. So I got that going for me, which is nice. Jermaine Wiggins, thanks for being with us. Thanks also for catching a pass in that drive back in the 2001 season. Made a big difference in my life when you won the Super Bowl. Appreciate it.